"You'll babysit your brother's kids. We're going on a family trip." That was it. No hello. No hug. No, "How was your 10-hour flight, sweetheart?" Just my mother, standing in the doorway with her coat already on, handing me a list of bedtimes and allergy meds, like I was the hired help she forgot to tip. My brother Derek leaned around the corner, grinning. "Don't wipe your snot on her, kids." The whole house laughed. 3 kids, 5 days, $0. And the resort they were heading to? I'd find out later. I was the one paying for it. What I said next made my mother's face drain white. And by the end of that week, every automatic payment, every bill, every favor I'd silently carried for 6 years would come crashing down on them like an avalanche they never saw building. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story. Drop your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing where you all are. My name is Claire. I'm 27. And this is the story of how I stopped being my family's ATM and watched them realize they couldn't afford their own lives without me. Now let me take you back to 3 weeks before Christmas, the night my mother called me crying. It was 11 at night. I was sitting cross-legged on my bed in my Seattle apartment with my laptop balanced on a pillow, finishing a code review that was already 3 days overdue. My phone buzzed once on the nightstand, then twice. Then it lit up with my mother's name and didn't stop. I picked up. The sobbing started before I could say hello. "Claire, honey, I need you to come home for the holidays." Her voice cracked in the exact place it always cracked. "This might be the last time I get all my kids under one roof. Your father would have wanted this." My father. She always knew exactly which wound to press. He'd been gone 8 years, and she still summoned him like a debt collector whenever she needed something from me. I told her I wasn't sure. Flights were expensive this close to Christmas. I'd just sent her the monthly transfer 5 days ago. My bank account was running on fumes and stubbornness. She didn't pause. "I already told Aunt Ruth you're coming. Don't make me look like a liar in front of the family." There it was. The 1-2. Guilt, then social pressure. I knew this choreography the way other people know their morning commute. And just like every other time, I folded. I booked a flight that night. $1,200. Economy. 10 hours with a layover in Denver. I remember staring at the confirmation email on my phone and thinking, this is fine. This is what good daughters do. I should have known better. Because the last time my mother cried on the phone like that, it cost me $11,000. But I'll get to that. 3 weeks later, I was dragging my suitcase through 6 inches of slush up my mother's driveway in Richmond, Virginia. My back ached from the flight. My fingers were numb. The porch light was on, and through the frosted glass I could see people moving around inside. I knocked. My mother opened the door, and the first thing I noticed was her coat. Not a bathrobe, not an apron, a coat. Zipped up, keys in her hand. She didn't hug me. She didn't even look at my face. She held out a folded piece of paper. "Here's the schedule. Lily's allergic to strawberries. The baby's reflux medicine is in the cabinet above the stove. Pediatrician's number is on the fridge." She checked her watch. "We need to leave in 20 minutes to make our dinner reservation." "We?" I said. That's when Derek appeared from the hallway. Resort polo. Sunglasses pushed up on his forehead. In December. He had that grin. The one he'd worn since childhood. The one that meant he was about to say something at my expense and everyone would laugh. "Don't wipe your snot on her, kids." His 3 children came stampeding around the corner, Lily, 5, grabbing my leg, the middle one, 3, running straight past me, and the baby, 18 months old, howling in Megan's arms. Megan walked by without looking at me. "The formula's on the counter. She wakes up at 2. And then they were gone, coats on, doors slamming, the SUV pulling out of the garage. I stood in the middle of the living room holding a piece of paper with somebody else's children's bedtimes, my suitcase still zipped at my feet. That's when I noticed something. The resort brochure on the kitchen counter. 5 days. Booked 3 weeks ago. A week before my mother ever called me. The tears were a script. And I was the punchline. The baby woke up at 2 a.m. Sharp, like Megan promised. The only thing Megan got right. I lifted her from the portable crib and walked slow circles through the dark living room, patting her back, humming some half-remembered song my father used to sing. The house was quiet except for her whimpering and the hum of the refrigerator. The refrigerator. I stopped in front of it. Under the magnets and the takeout menus, there were photos. Derek's college graduation, Derek's wedding, the whole family at the beach last 4th of July. Derek, Megan, the kids, my mother, even Aunt Ruth in the corner with her sun hat. I wasn't in a single one. I stood there for a long time bouncing the baby, scanning every photo like maybe I'd missed myself. I hadn't. My phone buzzed in my back pocket. A banking notification. I shifted the baby to one arm and checked it. Charge, $4,800. Coastal Breeze Resort and Spa. My mother's credit card. The card I paid the monthly statement on. The card she'd just used to book a resort vacation that I wasn't invited to. Something cold slid through my chest. Not sadness, something sharper. I sat down on the couch with the baby asleep on my shoulder and opened my banking app. I started scrolling. Rent transfer. $1,400. Auto pay insurance. $200. Credit card statement. Variable, but never under $300. I scrolled further and further. 6 years of transactions. I'd never sat down and added them up before. I think part of me had been afraid to. The baby's breathing was slow and warm against my neck. The house was perfectly silent. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of the baby, because I opened a spreadsheet, and I started counting. To understand what happened next, you need to understand how I got here, and that means going back to the day my father died. I was 21, just graduated. No job lined up yet, just a degree and a plan to move to the West Coast and start fresh. My father, Richard Fielding, a quiet man who fixed lawnmowers in the garage and called me kiddo until the day he died, had a heart attack on a Tuesday morning. By Wednesday, he was gone. At the funeral, it rained so hard you could barely hear the pastor. Derek stood next to Megan, who was 6 months pregnant with Lily. He cried. My mother cried. Everyone cried. I did too, but I also remember watching my mother's face and seeing something beneath the grief. Something calculating. She pulled me aside at the reception. "Claire, you're the strong one. Derek has a family to worry about. I only have you now." I was 21. I didn't know that sentence was a leash. I got my first job 2 months later. Entry level. The paycheck barely covered my rent and groceries. The very first month, my mother called. "I can't make rent this month, baby. Just this once." I sent her $1,400, and then I sent it again the next month. And the next, and the next. For 6 years. Not once, not a single time in 72 months, did my mother ask Derek for money. Not when he bought a new truck 6 months after our father's funeral. Not when he and Megan took a cruise for their anniversary. Not when he upgraded his TV to a 70-inch flat screen. Funny how strong always meant the one who pays. Last Christmas was supposed to be different. I told myself that on the plane ride to Richmond. I even believed it. I'd bought gifts for everyone. Real gifts. A cashmere scarf for my mother. A set of wooden building blocks for the kids. Hand-painted, $60. A nice bottle of bourbon for Derek because I was still trying. Always trying. The gift I received was a bath towel, wrapped in newspaper. Not even the good kind of newspaper. It was a grocery store circular. I could still see the coupon for $2 chicken thighs peeking out from the fold. "I grabbed it last minute," my mother said cheerfully. "You're so hard to shop for." I smiled. Of course I smiled. The day after Christmas, my mother announced a family ski trip. I actually felt a little excited, which should tell you everything about how low my bar was. I woke up early, put on the warmest thing I owned, and came downstairs ready to go. Derek was tying his boots in the hallway. He looked up. "Someone's got to stay with the kids, Claire. You don't even ski." My mother appeared behind him. He's right, honey, it makes sense. So I stayed. 3 kids, a cold house, a window with a clear view of the driveway. I watched them pile into the car, laughing, zipping jackets, passing around a thermos of hot chocolate. Megan turned and gave me a little wave through the glass, the kind you give a hotel clerk. When they came home that night, smelling like pine and cold air, not a single person asked me how my day went. Derek just looked around the living room and said, "The house is still standing. Good job." That was the first year. I told myself it wouldn't happen again. I was wrong. And the next time was worse. 8 months before the holiday trip, my mother called at midnight, not her usual guilt trip hour. This was genuine panic. Or so I thought. "Claire, the pipes burst. There's water everywhere. The kitchen floor is ruined. I don't know what to do." I could hear something dripping in the background. Maybe water. Maybe performance. I transferred $11,000 the next morning. Nearly everything in my emergency savings. I ate rice and canned beans for 3 weeks. I told myself it was worth it. My mother needed me, and I was the strong one. 2 weeks later, Derek posted photos on social media. A birthday party, his birthday, at my mother's house. And there, gleaming behind the cake and the streamlined guests, was a brand new kitchen. Granite island, pendant lights, subway tile backsplash, the works. The caption read, "Mom outdid herself this year." I stared at that photo for 10 minutes. Then I texted my mother. "I thought the pipes burst." She replied fast, like she'd been expecting the question. "They did. But since we were fixing things anyway, I upgraded the kitchen a little." Family needs a nice kitchen, Claire. A little. $11,000. I later found the actual plumbing invoice stuffed in a drawer during one of my visits. $612 to fix the pipe. The remaining $10,388 went to a kitchen remodel that I was never consulted about, never invited to enjoy, and never thanked for. Family needs a nice kitchen. She kept using that word. Family. I don't think it meant what she thought it meant, or maybe it meant exactly what she thought. Family meant me. Paying. Quietly. Forever. I deleted the text thread. I didn't say a word. That was the last time. Until it wasn't. 3 months before I flew home for the holidays, Megan sent me a screenshot by accident. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was on my lunch break, scrolling through messages, when a notification popped up from Megan, which was already unusual because Megan and I didn't talk. We existed in the same family the way strangers exist on the same subway car. The screenshot showed a group chat called Fielding Fam. I'd never seen it before. I wasn't in it. 4 members. My mother, Derek, Megan, and Aunt Ruth. My mother had written, "Claire is so dramatic sometimes. I ask for one small favor and she acts like I'm ruining her life." Derek, right below. "She just likes feeling important. Letter." Megan. LOL? Aunt Ruth. A laughing emoji. I read it 4 times. Then I put my phone face down on my desk and stared at the wall. One small favor. That's what my mother called it. $1,400 a month. $11,000 for a kitchen. Car insurance for a brother who wouldn't even hand me a cup of coffee. One small favor. And the group chat that my entire family was in. The family group chat. Didn't include me. But my monthly payment sure did include my mother's phone bill. I was paying for the phone she used to talk about me behind my back. Megan never mentioned the screenshot. Either she didn't realize she'd forwarded it, or she didn't care enough to worry. But I saved it. I took a screenshot of the screenshot and put it in a folder on my phone. I didn't know why at the time. It felt like instinct, like pocketing a receipt you might need later. Turns out, my subconscious was already building a case. Back to that first night alone in my mother's living room. The baby was asleep on the couch, tucked between 2 pillows. Lily and the middle one were in Derek's old bedroom. The house was dead quiet, and the glow from my laptop screen was the only light in the room. I'd been at it for 3 hours, transaction by transaction, month by month. Bank statements going back to August 6 years ago. The first $1,400 I ever sent. When the spreadsheet was done, I just sat there. Rent. $1,400 times 72 months. $100,800. Car insurance for Derek. $200 times 72 months. $14,400. Credit card statements. $16,800 across 6 years. That was just what I'd tracked so far. There were probably charges I'd missed. The kitchen renovation. $11,000. Total at the bottom of the screen, bolded by default because the cell formatting picked it up. $143,000. I paid $143,000 to a family that doesn't put my photo on the refrigerator. I looked at the number. Then I looked at the sleeping baby. Then I looked at the empty driveway outside. Somewhere on a beach, my family was eating shrimp cocktail on a tab that would show up on a card that I would pay. And here I sat, in a dark living room, with a spreadsheet that told me exactly how invisible I'd been, and exactly how expensive that invisibility was. I picked up my phone, typed a message to Nora, my best friend since college, the only person who ever asked me, "Claire, how much are you actually sending them? I need your help, and I need you to be honest with me." She called back in 7 minutes, and the first thing she said was something I'd needed to hear for 6 years. "Claire, you gave them a house." That was the first thing Nora said. Not hello. Not, what happened? She looked at the spreadsheet I'd screen shared on FaceTime, and for about 30 seconds she didn't say anything at all. I could see her eyes moving across the numbers, line by line, the way she reads everything. Like a woman who counts things for a living. Which she does. Nora's an accountant. A good one. The kind who catches errors other people pray nobody notices. I was sitting on the floor of my mother's bathroom. The door locked, the fan on so the kids wouldn't wake up. "You gave them a down payment on a house, Claire, and they didn't even give you a seat at the table." I tried to laugh. It came out wrong. She calls it helping out. Helping out is bringing groceries. Helping out is watching the kids on a Saturday. This? She pointed at the screen. This is subsidizing their entire lifestyle. Your mother's rent, your brother's car insurance, her credit card. Claire, do you even know everything that's in your name? I didn't, and that scared me more than the number. Nora walked me through it. Pull your credit report tonight, right now. Check every autopay link to your bank account. And Claire, are you a co-signer on anything? I paused. The lease. Mom asked me to co-sign when she moved after Dad died. She said it was just a formality. Nora went quiet again. That particular quiet she gets when she's angry, but choosing her words carefully. If she misses a payment, it hits your credit. You know that, right? I didn't answer, because I hadn't known that. Not really. Not the way it mattered. We're going through everything tonight, Nora said. All of it. It was 3 a.m. when I pulled my credit report. Nora stayed on the phone the whole time, guiding me through the screens while I sat on the cold tile floor with my back against the bathtub. 2 credit cards I recognized. A joint checking account I'd opened years ago and forgotten about. A co-signed lease, just like I told Nora. And then a 3rd credit card. Opened 14 months ago. Authorized user, Patricia Fielding. Balance, $3,200. I stared at the screen. Nora, I didn't open this. I know you didn't. I never signed anything. I never authorized her to be on this card. Nora's voice was careful, like someone handling glass. Claire, that's not just financial carelessness. Adding an authorized user and racking up a balance without consent. That could be considered fraud, even between family members. She's my mother. And she opened a credit line in your name without asking. Those 2 things can be true at the same time. I pulled up the statements. The charges were all hers. A department store. A day spa. $340 for a single visit. Groceries that weren't cheap. 14 months of spending on a card I didn't know existed, under my name, affecting my credit score. I set the phone down on the tile. I sat there in that bathroom, in my mother's house, with the fan still whirring above me and the faucet dripping and the baby monitor silent for once. And for the first time in 6 years, I didn't cry. I just saw everything clearly, like someone had finally turned on the lights in a room I'd been stumbling through in the dark. I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt something I hadn't felt in 6 years. Clarity. And clarity, it turns out, is dangerous. For the people who depend on your confusion. The next afternoon, my phone rang. Mom. I could hear waves and laughter and some kind of steel drum music in the background before she even said a word. How are the kids? Not, how are you? Not, did you sleep? Just, how are the kids? Fine, I said. Oh, good. Listen, honey, Derek forgot to pack the kids' rain boots. There's supposed to be rain tomorrow, and Lily has a thing about wet socks. Can you run to the store and grab some? With what car, Mom? A pause. Oh, right. Well, take an Uber. Use my card. Another pause. Actually, no. Just use yours. I'll pay you back. She would not pay me back. She had never, in 6 years, paid me back for anything. Derek's voice floated in from the background, bright and casual, like he was talking about the weather. Tell her to get the good brand, not the cheap ones. I looked at my laptop, still open on the kitchen counter. The spreadsheet glowed from across the room. $143,000, plus the $3,200 I'd found at 3 a.m, plus the $4,800 resort charge. The number was still growing, even now, even while I held the phone. Sure, Mom. I hung up. I didn't go to the store. I sat at the kitchen counter and looked at the spreadsheet and the sleeping baby, and the empty house and the resort brochure and the photos on the refrigerator that didn't include me, and I made a decision. That was the last time I said, sure, Mom, and meant it. The next time those words left my mouth, they would carry a very different weight. I called Nora again that evening, after the kids were in bed. This time, I wasn't sitting on the bathroom floor. I was sitting at my mother's kitchen counter, the $11,000 kitchen counter, with my laptop open and a pen in my hand. What do you want to do? Nora asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Not the angry version, not the crying version, the clear version. I want to stop lying to myself that they'll change. Nora was quiet. Then she said, tell me what that looks like. So I told her. I laid it out like a project plan, because that's what I do for a living. I build systems, and this was a system that needed to be shut down. Step 1, cancel every automatic payment from my accounts. Rent, insurance, credit card statement, all of it. Step 2, contact the landlord and notify him that I'm removing my name as co-signer on my mother's lease. Step 3, call the credit card company and report the unauthorized card. Freeze it. Step 4, print the spreadsheet. Every line, every dollar, every month. 12 pages. Nora listened to all of it without interrupting. Then she said something that made my stomach drop, but in a good way. The way it drops when you're about to jump and you've already decided. Call the landlord before you tell them. Get it in motion before they can guilt you out of it. Once the paperwork's moving, it's done. They can cry all they want, but the clock is ticking. She was right. If I told them first, my mother would cry, Derek would yell, and I'd fold. I always folded. Not this time. I'm not punishing them, I said. I'm just not lying for them anymore. I made the calls the next morning while the kids watched cartoons in the living room. One by one, with the volume turned up just enough to cover my voice from the kitchen. First, the landlord, Mr. Garnett. A polite man with a flat voice who clearly wasn't used to calls like this. I'm calling because I'm a co-signer on the lease at 412 Briar Lane. My mother, Patricia Fielding, is the primary tenant. I'd like to formally request the removal of my name. He asked a few questions. I answered them. Then he said, I appreciate the heads up, Ms. Fielding. Your mother will have 30 days to secure a new co-signer, or the lease will transition to a month-to-month arrangement pending credit review. 30 days. The clock was set. Second call, my bank. I canceled the auto pay for 3 recurring transfers: rent, car insurance, Credit card statement. The representative confirmed each cancellation and read me a reference number. I wrote them all down. Third call, the credit card company. This one took longer. I explained the situation. An authorized user had been added to my account without my knowledge or consent. The representative paused, then said, "We'll flag this for review and freeze the card immediately. You have the option to file a formal dispute if you'd like." "Not yet," I said, "but I want it frozen today." Done. I sat at the kitchen counter after I hung up. The stack of printed spreadsheets, 12 pages highlighted in yellow, sat in a manila folder beside me. Everything was ready. The autopays were dead. The landlord had been notified. The unauthorized card was ice. Everything was set. The dominoes were lined up. All I had to do was wait for them to walk back through that front door. Tanned, rested, and completely unaware that the floor beneath them had already been pulled. That last night, Lily crawled into my lap on the couch. She was in her pajamas, the ones with the little astronauts on them, and she smelled like baby shampoo and graham crackers. She pressed her face into my shoulder and said, "Auntie, why don't you come on trips with us?" "I have to work, sweetie." She pulled back and looked at me the way 5-year-olds look at you when they're about to repeat something they heard an adult say. "Daddy says you don't do anything important." The room tilted, just for a second. I hugged her tighter and didn't answer. I tucked her into bed, kissed her forehead, and walked back to the kitchen, where my phone was charging next to the manila folder. And then, for the first time since this whole thing started, I almost quit. I picked up the phone and called Nora. It was past midnight in Seattle, but she answered on the second ring. I was crying. Really crying. The ugly kind. The kind I hadn't let myself do in years. "What if I'm wrong?" I whispered. "What if this destroys everything?" Nora didn't hesitate. "Claire, you paid $143,000. They called you dramatic in a group chat you weren't in. Your mother opened a credit card in your name. This isn't love. This is a system. And you're the engine they refuse to maintain." I pressed the heel of my hand against my eyes, breathed. "I'm not doing this to hurt them," I said. "I know. You're doing this so you can stop hurting." I hung up, wiped my face, looked at Lily's door, closed and quiet. Then I heard it, the next morning. Tires on gravel, their car pulling into the driveway. And I realized my hands weren't shaking anymore. They poured through the front door like a parade float nobody asked for. Suitcases rolling, skin tanned, voices loud. My mother was wearing new sunglasses. Derek had a resort gift shop bag dangling from one hand. Nobody said thank you. Nobody asked me how the 5 days went. Patricia walked past me, scanned the kitchen. "The house looks clean." Then, to no one in particular, "Did anyone bring the leftovers from the resort?" Megan scooped up the baby and inspected her like a mechanic checking under a hood. "Did she eat enough? She looks thinner." "She ate everything on the schedule you left," I said. Megan didn't respond, just walked off toward the nursery. Derek tossed his keys onto the counter. "House is still standing. Not bad, sis." Same line as last year. Same grin. Then my mother turned to me with the casual authority of someone giving a hotel concierge one last task. "Oh, Claire, before I forget, can you run to pick up Derek's dry cleaning? He has a thing tonight." I looked at her. Really looked. "No." The word sat in the room like a rock through a window. My mother blinked. Derek stopped mid-step. "What?" Patricia said. I said no, but I do need to talk to everyone. Tonight. After dinner. 3 seconds of silence. 3 full seconds. I counted them in my head. "About what?" Derek asked. "About money." My mother's face flickered, something fast behind the eyes, gone before it fully formed. Then she smiled. That tight smile. The one she uses when she's already rewriting the narrative. "Someone's dramatic again. Fine. We'll talk after dinner." She had no idea what was coming. None of them did. Dinner was my mother's specialty. Pot roast with mashed potatoes, green beans, a pie from the bakery she always swore she made herself. She cooked it in the new kitchen. My kitchen. The $11,000 one. The conversation was all resort. Patricia told a story about a waiter who spilled a drink near their table. Derek showed photos on his phone: the pool, the sunset, a plate of crab legs. Megan scrolled through her own album and held the screen toward me. "Look at this one. The kids would have loved it. The kids who were here, with me, while you were there." I said nothing. I ate my food. I waited. My mother noticed. She always noticed when the room wasn't organized the way she wanted it. "Honey, you seem tense. Is everything okay at work?" There it was. The redirect. If Claire is upset, it must be about Claire. It could never, ever be about them. "Work is fine, Mom. I just have some numbers I want to share with everyone after we clean up." Derek snorted. "Numbers? What is this? A board meeting?" Patricia laughed. Megan half smiled. "Something like that," I said. I didn't smile. I set my fork down. The clink of metal on ceramic was the loudest thing in the room for about 2 seconds, and in those 2 seconds, something shifted. I watched it cross their faces. Derek's grin fading half a degree. My mother's hands pausing over her plate. Megan glancing at Derek the way people glance at each other when the script goes off book. I waited until the dishes were done, until the kids were in bed, until there was nowhere to run and nothing to distract them. Then I opened my laptop. My mother is not a stupid woman. Manipulative, yes. Entitled, absolutely. But stupid? No. While I was putting the kids to bed, she made a phone call. I know because I heard her whispering in the hallway when I came back downstairs. She had her hand cupped over her mouth, like she was shielding a candle flame. "Ruth, can you come over? Claire is acting strange. I think she's going to cause a scene." 20 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Aunt Ruth, my father's younger sister, 52, the kind of woman who brings casseroles to every crisis and opinions to every conversation, stood on the porch in her reading glasses and a heavy cardigan. She hugged my mother first. Then she turned to me with that particular look. Half pity, half suspicion. The one she used whenever my mother had gotten to her first. "Claire, your mother told me you're upset about something. Whatever it is, let's just talk it out like family." My mother appeared behind Ruth's shoulder, dabbing her eye with a tissue. "See? Even Aunt Ruth is worried about you, honey." She called reinforcements. Of course she did. She'd been doing this my entire life, stacking the room before I could speak, making sure the jury was seated before the defendant even entered. Derek was on the couch with his arms crossed. Megan sat beside him, scrolling her phone, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else. And now Aunt Ruth, freshly primed with my mother's version of events, was settling into the armchair like a judge taking the bench. 4 against 1. Just the way my mother liked it. I looked at Ruth and smiled. Not a mean smile, a tired one. "That's exactly what I plan to do, Aunt Ruth. Talk it out, like family." Then I opened my laptop. The living room was arranged like a courtroom nobody had planned. My mother sat in the center of the couch, hands folded in her lap, the posture she used when she wanted to look reasonable. Derek was to her left, arms still crossed, jaw tight. Megan was on the right, phone finally face down on the armrest. Aunt Ruth sat in the wing-back chair across from them, watching me over her reading glasses. I stood, laptop open on the coffee table, the manila folder beside it. "Okay, Claire," my mother said. Her voice had that particular texture, smooth on top, impatient underneath. "What's this big emergency?" "Can we speed this up?" Derek said. "I've got an early morning." I didn't look at Derek. I looked at the screen. Then I looked at each of them, one at a time, the way my father used to look at me when he was about to say something that mattered. "I'm going to show you something. I'm going to be calm. I'm going to be factual. And when I'm done, I'm going to leave. You can react however you want, but you will not change my mind." 5 seconds of silence. My mother looked at Derek. Derek looked at Megan. Megan picked up her phone, then set it down again. Aunt Ruth leaned forward, 1 inch. Nobody spoke. The wall clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed from the kitchen. The new refrigerator, in the new kitchen, paid for by the person standing in front of them. I turned the laptop so the screen faced the couch. I pressed one key. The spreadsheet filled the screen. Every line, every month, every dollar. Organized by category, sorted by date, totaled at the bottom. The number at the bottom, bold, red, underlined, was $146,200. I read it line by line. I didn't rush. I didn't whisper. I spoke the way I speak in a code review. Factual, sequential, documented. Rent, $1,400 a month. 72 months. That's $100,800. My mother's mouth opened slightly. No sound came out. Car insurance for Derek, $200 a month. 72 months. 14,400. Derek shifted on the couch. Credit card statements for the card linked to your account, Mom. Over 6 years. $16,800. I kept going. Kitchen renovation. The one you told me was a pipe emergency. $11,000. The plumber's invoice was $612. The rest went to granite countertops and pendant lights. My mother looked down at her hands. And this resort you just came back from. $4,800. Charged to the card I pay the statement on. The card you didn't tell me you were using for a vacation I wasn't invited to. I straightened up. Plus incidentals I'm still finding. Total, $146,200. Silence. 8 seconds of it. I know because the clock on the wall ticked, and I counted. Derek was the first to speak. Where are you getting these numbers? Your bank statements. Or rather, my bank statements. Because every single one of these came out of my accounts. I opened the manila folder and placed the printed pages on the coffee table, one at a time. 12 pages, each one highlighted in yellow. They landed with the softest sound, paper on wood. But in that room, in that silence, each one sounded like a door closing. $146,200. That's what helping out looks like when you add it up. But that's not all. I watched my mother's eyes flick up from the printed pages. Something new behind them, not guilt. Fear. 14 months ago, someone opened a credit card in my name. I was listed as the primary account holder. An authorized user was added. Patricia Fielding. I looked at my mother. I didn't sign anything. I didn't agree to it. The balance on that card is $3,200. Patricia's hand went to her throat. That was just for emergencies, Claire. I pulled the statements, Mom. Nordstrom, $218. A spa day, $340. Groceries, but not budget groceries. Organic steaks, imported cheese. I paused. That's not an emergency. That's a lifestyle. On my credit. Aunt Ruth turned to my mother. Her face had changed. The pity was gone. Patty, is this true? You opened a card in her name? It's not what it looks like. And one more thing. I picked up my phone, opened the folder, and held the screen so everyone could see it. The screenshot. The group chat. Fielding fam. 4 members. Not 5. I read it out loud, my voice flat and steady. Claire is so dramatic sometimes. I ask for one small favor and she acts like I'm ruining her life. That was you, Mom. I scrolled. She just likes feeling important. Let her. I looked at Derek. That was you. Derek's face went red from the neck up, like paint being poured. Megan stared at the floor as if the carpet held a trapdoor she could disappear through. Aunt Ruth pulled her glasses off. Slowly. Like a woman realizing she'd been reading the wrong page of a very long book. Patty, she said quietly, you opened a card in her name? My mother started crying. Not the soft kind, the loud kind, the performance kind. The version that had always worked before, the one that made everyone in the room rush to her side and forget what they were upset about. I can't believe my own daughter is doing this to me, she said, her voice cracking in all the rehearsed places. After everything I sacrificed raising you kids alone, your father would be devastated. There it was, the dead card. She played it the way she always played it. Like an ace she kept up her sleeve for emergencies. Derek stood up. You're seriously doing this during the holidays? What is wrong with you? You want a medal for helping your own family? Megan murmured from the couch. This is so uncomfortable. And then went silent. Still the bystander. Still watching from behind the glass. My mother turned to Aunt Ruth, her eyes wet, her chin trembling. Ruth. Tell her. Tell her she's being ungrateful. But Ruth didn't tell me anything. She was looking at the spreadsheet, tracing the highlighted lines with one finger. Her lips were moving, doing math. Then she looked up. Not at me. At Patricia. Patty, she said. Her voice was careful but solid, the voice of a woman who'd just done the arithmetic and didn't like the total. $146,000 is not helping out. And the credit card. Not you too, my mother whispered. The tears were still streaming, but something behind them had shifted. She wasn't sad. She was losing. I stood completely still. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I let the numbers sit on the table and the words hang in the air, and I let the truth do what the truth does when you stop apologizing for it. My mother was crying. My brother was yelling, but I hadn't even told them the worst part yet. I raised one hand, just slightly, palm open. The room went quiet, not because they respected me, but because something in my posture had changed and they could feel it. I'm not asking for anything back, I said. I'm not suing anyone. I'm not here to punish you. I'm just telling you what's already happened. Derek sat back down, slowly. As of yesterday, every automatic payment from my accounts to yours has been canceled. Rent? Canceled. Car insurance? Canceled. Credit card statement? Canceled. All of it. Effective immediately. My mother's face went white. Not pink. Not pale. White. I've notified your landlord, Mr. Garnett, that I'm removing my name as co-signer on the lease. You have 30 days to find a new co-signer, or the lease transitions to a month-to-month arrangement pending a credit review. Derek leaned forward. You can't do that. I already did, Derek. 2 days ago. And the credit card that was opened in my name without my consent, I said, looking at my mother. Frozen. The balance is under review. And then the room stopped. I don't mean it got quiet. I mean it stopped. The way a clock stops. The way a heart skips. The way a movie freeze frames on the one shot that changes everything. 10 seconds. Nobody breathed. Nobody moved. Aunt Ruth's hand went to her chest. Megan's phone slipped from the armrest and hit the carpet. Derek stared at Megan. Megan stared at the floor. And my mother, who had spent my entire adult life writing the story of this family in her own hand, whispered 3 words. No. No. No way. I didn't blink. I'm not punishing you. I'm just not paying for you anymore. Derek pulled his phone from his pocket like a man reaching for a life raft. He opened his insurance app, tapped twice. His face changed. My insurance says lapsed. He looked up at me. What did you do? I stopped paying for it. That's what I did. Your car insurance has been in my name, billed to my card, for 6 years. I canceled the auto pay. Megan grabbed his arm. Derek, the pediatrician is on Tuesday. We can't drive the kids without insurance. We can't. Shut up, Megan. Derek turned back to me, his voice low and tight. Turn it back on, Claire. No, Derek. Turn it back on. No, you turn it on. In your name. With your money. The way every other 31-year-old man with 3 children and a truck handles his own car insurance. He stood up. For a moment I thought he might yell. Really yell, not the performative kind. But he didn't. He just stood there, his phone in one hand, his mouth opening and closing like a man trying to start a sentence that doesn't exist. This is insane, he finally said. You're insane. I'm 27 years old. I've been paying your car insurance since you were 25. That's $200 a month for 6 years. $14,400. And you never once asked where it came from. That was the line that landed. Not the number. The never once. I watched it hit him. His jaw clenched. His eyes dropped. And for the first time in my life, I saw my brother look at me and have absolutely nothing to say. Megan was already on her phone, Googling something, probably insurance quotes. The first domino had fallen, but the biggest one was still standing. My mother's voice came out thin, stretched, like a wire about to snap. Claire, if you take your name off the lease, I can't qualify on my own. My credit. It's not. She stopped, swallowed. I'll lose the house. I looked at her, at the woman who had fed me guilt for 6 years, who had called me crying to get me on a plane, who had handed me a babysitting schedule before she'd handed me a glass of water. It was never your house, Mom. It was mine. I just let you live in it. She turned to Ruth. Ruth, please, talk to her. She's going to put me on the street. Aunt Ruth was sitting very still. She'd been quiet since the spreadsheet, since the credit card reveal, since the group chat. But now she spoke, and her voice had a tremor I'd never heard before. Patty, I had no idea she was paying for all of this. You told me you were managing on your own. You told me Claire was just helping with groceries here and there. I was managing $146,000, Patty. That is not managing. That is not groceries. Ruth paused. Her chin lifted. Her eyes were wet, but they were steady. If my brother were alive? She stopped. The room waited. My brother would be ashamed of how you've treated his daughter. My mother broke. Not the theatrical break, the real one. The sound that came out of her was small and raw, and it filled the room the way water fills a crack. She pressed both hands to her face and wept. Nobody moved toward her. For the first time in my memory, nobody rushed to comfort Patricia Fielding. I'm not putting you on the street, Mom. I'm giving you 30 days to figure out your own life. The way I've been figuring out mine. Alone. For 6 years. I closed the laptop. I picked up the manila folder. I stood up straight. The way I should have stood up years ago. I love this family, I said. I do. But love is not a subscription you auto-renew on someone else's credit card. My mother was still crying. Derek was standing against the wall, his arms at his sides now, staring at nothing. Megan had her face in her hands. If any of you want a relationship with me, a real one, where I'm not the ATM or the babysitter or the scapegoat, you know my number. But the next time you call, it won't be to ask for money. I paused. It will be to ask how I'm doing. I reached for my suitcase. I'd packed it that afternoon while they were unpacking theirs. I'd placed it by the door the way someone places a chess piece, quietly, deliberately, before the final move. I was halfway to the front door when I heard the footsteps. Small ones. Fast. Auntie, where are you going? Lily. Astronaut pajamas, eyes wide, standing in the hallway, barefoot on the cold hardwood. I set down my suitcase. I knelt in front of her. I tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and said, I'm going home, sweetie, but I'll always pick up the phone when you call. Always. I kissed her forehead. She held on to my sleeve for a second, then let go. I stood up. I looked at my mother one last time. She was sitting on the couch, hands in her lap, staring at the stack of printed pages. She didn't say a word. For the first time in my entire life, Patricia Fielding had nothing to say. I opened the door. The cold air hit my face. Snow was falling, soft and quiet. I walked to the curb and called a car to the airport. I didn't look back. The plane took off at 11:42 p.m. window seat, red-eye to Seattle with a connection in Charlotte. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass and watched the lights of Richmond shrink into a grid, then a glow, then nothing. The cabin was dim. The engines hummed. The woman next to me was already asleep. My phone buzzed. 14 messages. Mom, how could you do this to me? Derek, you ruined Christmas. Megan, the baby needs formula. Can you at least send money for that? Aunt Ruth, Claire, I'm sorry. I should have seen it sooner. Call me when you're ready. I read each one exactly once. Then I muted every thread except Ruth's. There was one more. From Nora. Landing okay? I typed back. Not yet. but I think I will be. I put my phone in airplane mode and sat there in the dark for a long time. The captain made an announcement about weather in Charlotte. A flight attendant walked the aisle with a quiet cart. I ordered a ginger ale. $5. $5. For myself. Without checking my bank account first, without calculating whether I could afford it after the rent transfer, the insurance payment, the credit card statement. I took a sip and realized this was the first thing I'd bought for myself in 6 years without doing math in my head about someone else's bills. It was just ginger ale, but it tasted like the beginning of something. The messages kept coming in. I knew they would. My mother's voice would fill my voicemail by morning, cycling through the stages. Anger, guilt, bargaining, more guilt. Derek would go silent. Megan would ask for money one more time because that was the only language she had. But at 35,000 feet, none of it could reach me. 1 week later, Seattle. Rain. I was back at my desk, back in my routine, back in the apartment that suddenly felt different. Not because anything in it had changed, but because everything outside it had. Aunt Ruth called me on Wednesday with updates. She didn't gossip. She reported, the same calm, factual tone I'd used in that living room. My mother had received a formal letter from Mr. Garnett. 30 days to find a new cosigner or the lease converts to month with a higher rent pending credit review. Patricia had been calling every relative she could think of, asking someone, anyone, to co-sign. Nobody would. Word had spread. The number had spread. $146,000 has a way of ending arguments before they start. Derek went 3 days without car insurance. He took Ubers to get the kids to the pediatrician. When he finally bought his own policy, the premium was higher than what I'd been paying. He had no independent history, no clean record in his own name. He was 31 years old and buying car insurance for the first time. Megan called her own mother and asked to stay with her for a week. Stress, she said. The unauthorized credit card was frozen. The $3,200 balance was under dispute. My mother would have to answer for every charge. No more spa days. No more department store runs. Not on my name. Not anymore. And me? I checked my bank account on Friday, the way I always did. But the number at the bottom was different. For the first time in 6 years, I had $3,800 left at the end of the month. Not $200, not $47, $3,800. That's what my life costs when I stop paying for theirs. 2 weeks later, a Sunday afternoon. My phone rang. Mom. I almost didn't answer. I stared at the screen for 4 rings, watching her name glow against the gray Seattle rain outside my window. On the 5th ring, I picked up. Her voice was different, softer. The kind of soft she uses when she's building towards something. Claire, honey, I've been thinking, and maybe I wasn't always fair to you. I waited. I'd learned to wait. I'm sorry if you felt hurt. If. That little word. 2 letters that turn an apology into an accusation. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry I had the audacity to feel something about it. But you have to understand, she continued. After your father died, I had no one. You were all I had. Mom, I said. I wasn't all you had. You had Derek. You had Aunt Ruth. You had a job. You chose me. Not because I was the only option, but because I was the only one who wouldn't say no. A long pause. I could hear her breathing. Then quieter. So, does this mean you'll help with the lease? Just until I get back on my feet? There it was. Buried in the apology like a hook inside a worm. The whole call, the softened voice, the maybe I wasn't fair. All of it leading to one thing. No, Mom. That's exactly what this means I won't do anymore. Silence. Then her voice dropped. Cold. Hard. Stripped of every pretense. You'll regret this. The line went dead. I set the phone down. Looked at the rain. I didn't cry. I didn't call Nora. I didn't feel guilty. I just felt done. 2 months later, A Saturday morning in Seattle. I woke up at 8. Not to an alarm. Not to a phone call. Not to a text that said, "Can you send?" or "I need," or "just this once." I woke up because the light came through my curtains and my body decided it was time. I made coffee. French press. Good beans. The $12 bag I'd been eyeing for weeks, and finally bought because I could. I sat at my kitchen table and did something I hadn't done on a Saturday morning in 6 years. Nothing. No bank transfers. No guilt. No mental arithmetic about whose bills were due and whether I'd have enough left for groceries. My phone buzzed. FaceTime. Aunt Ruth. I answered. She was in her living room, reading glasses on, a mug of something in her hand. She looked tired but clear. "I talked to your mother," she said. "I told her she needs help. Financial counseling at the very least. She's not happy with me either right now." "I'm sorry, Aunt Ruth." "Don't be. I should have paid closer attention. I believed her when she said she was managing." Ruth paused. Then she said something I hadn't known I needed to hear. "Claire, your dad would be proud of you. Not because you stopped giving, but because you finally valued yourself." I pressed my hand over my mouth. The tears came. But they were different this time. Not the burning kind. The kind that come when something heavy finally lifts. Nora was at the table across from me, mid-bite of a piece of toast. She'd come over for brunch, the way she did most Saturdays now. She caught my eye and grinned. "Welcome to your life, Fielding. It's been waiting for you." I used to think being a good daughter meant saying yes to everything, that every no was a betrayal. That love came with a monthly payment, and if I stopped sending it, I'd stop mattering. I was wrong. My mother and I don't talk much now. She sends texts sometimes, short ones, usually about the weather or a recipe she saw on television. She hasn't asked for money. I don't know if that's growth or strategy. I hope it's growth, but I've stopped needing to know. Derek hasn't called. Not once. I think about Lily sometimes. Her astronaut pajamas, the way she held my sleeve. I send her birthday cards with bookstore gift cards inside. I don't know if she gets them. Megan sent me one text about a month after I left. "The baby needs formula. Can you at least help with that?" I replied with the phone number for WIC assistance and a link to apply. She never wrote back. Aunt Ruth calls every Sunday, without fail. We talk about my dad, about work, about her garden. She's the only bridge I have back to my family, and I've decided that one good bridge is enough. I'm not rich. I'm not winning. I still live in a one-bedroom apartment. Some weeks I eat ramen. I still check my bank account too often. Old habits don't die. They just learn to whisper. But for the first time in 6 years, my money is mine. My time is mine. My peace is mine. And if you're listening to this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you're someone's ATM, someone's free babysitter, someone's plan B, I want you to know something. You're allowed to stop. You're allowed to count. And you're allowed to leave. That's not selfishness. That's survival. Love is not a subscription. And you are not a service they forgot to cancel. Thank you for staying with me to the end. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been the invisible one, the one who pays, the one who stays, leave a comment and tell me your story. I read every single one. Hit that like button if you felt something. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's still paying for people who won't even put their photo on the fridge, send it to them. Sometimes the courage to set a boundary starts with knowing you're not alone. There's another story in the description that I think you'll connect with. I'll see you there.